Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF TB NEDARIM and Pei. We are holding on Pedal and Beis towards the bottom. Let's back up to the beginning of this section here. So it's 9 lines from the bottom of Pedal Amud Beis. Back to the Mishnah where we have a fellow who says, look, no Kohanim or Levim can benefit from my produce. I'm a farmer. Don't want anybody to take anything from me. So the Mishnah says, well, it's not up to him. Yitlu al karchai. The Torah established, the Truma and Maser system. It's in place regardless of his wishes. So this halacha would indicate to us, would seem to indicate that when a farmer actually gives away that portion of Truma and Maser, he's not giving his. You see, it's not a personal gift going from him to the Kohen. It's what we call Tivas Hana, that sort of financial stake that, theoretically somebody can, give him a little tip to give this Truma to a certain Kohen. A Yisrael grandfather can tip off the farmer, here, look, I have a grandson who can use this Truma. Here's a little tip, a little bonus. This idea of a favor, this tivas hana, this this control, this potential benefit that you can get from owning the Truma and Maser. That's what's called tivas hana. Is that substantial? Is that an indication of some partial ownership in the Truma and Maser? That's a sugya that we're going to learn today. It's mashma. It would seem from the Mishnah that we don't reckon with that. It's not significant. It's not substantial. It doesn't really constitute ownership. The fact is, even if he made a neder against Kohanim and Levim, they can still go ahead and take the Truma and Maser. Okay, so let's start the Gemara. Kohanim and Levim nanenli yitu al karchai alma. It appears from this halacha that tivas hana, this idea is not substantial enough. It's not considered ownership. Eino mame. We don't deem it as having financial value, so to speak, and therefore when the kohen takes it ba'al karcha, against his will, there's no issue. He's not taking directly from the farmer. It's Hashem's gift to the kohen, right? Eimo seifa. But here comes the next part of the Mishnah, which seems to tell us just the opposite. Kohanim elu, u'levim elu nehenin li. A farmer gets up and says, I don't like this kohen, I don't like this Levi. They can't have enough from me. Specific, people. We have to listen. We have to follow. Yitlu achirim. Others can come take, but not these specific people. Why? Because they are mudar hana'a from him. Aval lahani loy. But these fellows can't take Truma and Maser. Why? Because they are accepting from him. What are they accepting? Truma and Maser. But it's not his. Tivas hana is his. He has a financial stake. He's a part owner. Alma tivas hana a moment. It is his moment, and therefore constitutes a direct gift from him to them, and therefore it's also, we seem to have a stira within the Mishnah. How to define tivas hana? Does a farmer have a partial ownership in his truma, in his maser, in which case when he gives it, it's a direct gift from him to the kohen, or is it something which he's merely abandoning? It's Hashem's gift to the kohen. The Reish, sounds like tivas hana is not mammon, and then it sounds like it is mammon. How do we reconcile this apparent contradiction? The answer is 2 different shittas. Ha-Rebbe v'ha-Rabbi Yehuda. Rebbe holds tivas hana is ownership. Rabbi Yossi ben Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. A thief walks up to the farm, swipes the granary, the kri, with all the tevel. So the Truma and Maser is as yet unseparated, right? He steals the tevel, eats it. How much does he have to pay back? Does he have to compensate for everything, including the potential Truma and Maser element within the kri, or does he just pay for the chulin aspect of the grain? which was really the only thing, owned by the farmer. The other party had to give away regardless. That's machlekes. We have two shittas. Rabbi says pay the whole thing, 100%, including the truma and maser element within that mix. The farmer owned that. He had that toivas hana interest. Even in the truma and the maser, it identifies with the farmer. It's his. You've stolen it from him. Pay it back. Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Doimer, no. Skip the truma and the maser. It didn't belong to the farmer to begin with. You pay, but only 80-90% of the total amount you can deduct. The truma and the maser, which in any case never really belonged to the farmer. It wasn't meant for him. It was meant for the Chaim. And the fact that he had that toivas hana interest, that's not considered ownership. My labokamifliki. Apparently, this is the very machlekes here. The Rebbe Savar, Rebbe who holds that you pay back 100% of what you took, including the truma and the maser aspect within that. He holds toivas hana mamin. It was owned by the farmer. For Rabbi Yisrael Brida Savar, toivas hana einay mamin, and therefore you don't pay for the truma and the maser you took. Says the Gemara, not so quick. Loi, perhaps not. Let's interpret the brisa differently. The kuli alma toivas hana einay mamin. Perhaps all would agree it doesn't constitute ownership. It's not balus. It's not real mammon. So what then is the machlekes? Ella, hach, b'matanos shaloi hurmu kamiflaki. You see, there are two ways to look at unseparated truma and maser. It's called matanos, potential gifts to the kohen, shaloi hurmu, which were not yet separated. Shall we say, look, at this point, everything in this pile, 100% of it belongs to the farmer. Notwithstanding the fact that there is some potential truma and potential maser lying in there, it's still premature. It's not yet truma, it's not yet maser. At this point, it is owned 100% by the farmer. Or we can say, look, let's be realistic about this. Ultimately, there is truma and maser in this pile, which is about to be separated, which goes to the kohen, which doesn't belong to the farmer. The fact that the Torah stipulates that within, this supply here, a certain percentage is destined, is earmarked for a kohen. That leads us to the conclusion that the farmer doesn't really own that part. We don't view him as a full owner on that part. That's the machlekes. Rebbe says, look, matana is truma and maser. It's not yet here. It's on the drawing board. It's on the plans. But at this point, it's tevel. It belongs to the owner. Pay it back, 100%. Rabbi Yossi, Vida says no. After all, there is a part of this creed that's not going to stay in the hands of the farmer. It's meant for a kohen. And therefore, let's just view it already as though it's been separated. It's not meant to stay in the farmer's hands, and therefore you're not responsible to pay it back. That's the machlekes. But in terms of the toivas hana issue, perhaps everybody, even Rebbe, would agree. That's not called mammon. If you really have the truma here, you really have the maser here, it is no longer considered in the hands of the farmer. He's no longer an owner. Although he has some sort of, fringe benefits from it, that's not considered ownership. The reason why in this price, Rebbe obligates the ganaf to pay 100% is because we have not yet separated the truma and the maser. Matanei shaloi hurmu. And therefore, it's still, at this early stage, still considered all owned by the owner. And therefore you have to pay back 100% of what you took. Asks the Gemara 1 second. Let's try to analyze this, a bit deeper. You can't separate the issues. And if it is indeed true, as you are suggesting, that a farmer is not considered a partial owner of the truma and the maser, despite the fact that he has some potential fringe benefit that he receives from that truma and maser, it's not considered mammon. It is not considered ownership. It's just like goyrim to some sort of benefit. It's not a direct ownership on the truma. If that's the case, as you are suggesting, so ultimately, in this pile of wheat lies a percentage of truma and maser that the farmer will not have anything from it. So ultimately, you haven't taken that from him. I understand it's still early in the game. It's not yet been identified and designated. But let's be realistic. In there lies, some truma material on which he has no ownership, according to your suggestion. And therefore, vita vesana in a moment, mali hurma, what difference does it make whether it's been separated and therefore he doesn't own it once it's been designated as truma, or if it's not yet been designated? After all, there's a portion of this kri which is not meant for the owner. Why do you have to pay? Why do you have to pay it back? You haven't taken anything from him. So this pshat doesn't work. Says the Gemara, Ella, rather, let me explain to you as follows. I'll be honest, I'm not sure, says the Gemara, what Rebbe or Rabbi Yosef Rida would hold in terms of this general question of Tevas Hana. Perhaps they both hold it's considered mammon, perhaps it's not considered mammon. That's not their machlekes. They're arguing about a side point. Elohainu time of the Rebbe. Perhaps all would agree that Tevas Hana is not mammon. Even Rebbe will agree as such. Hainu time of the Rebbe. The reason why Rebbe obligates the thief to pay back 100% of what he took, even the value of the truma and the master, hainu time of the Rebbe, kansua rabbanon leganav kihechi deloy lignev. It's a special penalty applied to a ganav. Why are you stealing? Therefore, we obligate him to pay even more than he should technically be paying. You pay even for the truma and the master, even though technically you haven't really stolen that from the owner. It never really belonged to him. It's a knas. Or conversely, we could say, all shittas hold Tevas Hana is mammon. For Rabbi Yosef, read the Savar. The reason why Rabbi Yosef says you don't have to pay for the truma of the master. Savar, because he holds kansur rabbanon l'bala bayis. Rabbanon applied a knas to the owner. What are you doing holding on to a tevel for this long? You're not meant to keep tevel in your house. Said people are discouraged from leaving tevel around long enough for them to be stolen. So perhaps technically Tevas Hana is not really mammon. Truma, the master, doesn't really belong to the farmer. The reason why Rabbi Yosef says pay back even the value of the truma, the master, it's a knas. Sorry, just the opposite. Sorry. Perhaps everybody would agree technically Tevas Hana is mammon, right? The reason why Rabbi Yosef says you don't have to pay for the truma of the master, it's a knas against the balabai. So basically, we're having it both ways. We're not sure what they both hold. Initially, we figured the machlokes between these shittas is this exact point: is Tevas Hana mammon? Is it not mammon? Now we're going back and saying that's not the machlokes. Maybe all agree it is considered mammon. Why don't you pay for the truma? A knas against the balabais. Or perhaps all agree it's not mammon. Why do you pay for the truma according to Rebbe? A knas against the ganav. So this pshat didn't really work out, and let's refer back to our kasha in the Mishnah. We seem to have a contradiction in the Mishnah. On the one hand, we say a fellow gets up and makes a neder against kohanim and levim in general, yitlu al karchay. They can access his truma. They can access his maser, which led us to believe that Tevas Hana is not mammon, and therefore it's not considered owned by the farmer. It's not considered a direct gift from him to the kohen. They can just take it. Then we say, well, when you specify, you identify certain kohanim and levim, they shouldn't take, then they can't. Why can't they? Oh, because they're taking from him. Tevas Hana is mammon. We have that kash. Here comes another teretz. Rava Omar. You know what? Perhaps let's adopt the opinion. Let's go on the track of Tevas Hana. Yes, mammon. That explains the second part of the Mishnah, right? These specific Kohanim can't take from me because they're taking my money. What's left to be answered is the Reisha. A general prohibition against all Kohanim taking my truma, they have to listen. They don't have to, they could just take it. What do you mean? It's mine. Says Rava like this. I'll give you a novel answer to that question. Rava Amar Shani Truma Dahainu Taima Ditla Korcha. The reason why they can take it against us all. Mishum the Truma La'echazia Ala Kahana. Let's face it. Who eats Truma? Only Kohanim. V'kiven the Ka'asi L'misra Alayu. What is this fellow getting up and saying? I want no Kohanim partaking in my Truma. Basically what you're doing is you're shutting the door. You're not allowing anybody to consume your Truma. The only candidate for consumption of Truma is a Kohen. You're not letting them. No Kohanim, right? So you're basically disabling your Truma. You're making it worthless. Shavya, you've turned it into Afar Ba'alma, just dirt, earth. You've turned it into a worthless entity. There are no customers, no consumers. And therefore it's like you made it hefker, says the Ran. Like, Kol Chamira and Erev Pesach. We turn it to Afar Ba'alma. Has no worth, has no value. Has no use. So it's like hefker. You've taken your ownership, your Tevas Hana, and you've relinquished it. It's worthless. So you've let go of the Truma, so now that allows others to take it. The whole point was, you have ownership, you have a Tevas Hana, you've given up that Tevas Hana. And therefore the Kohanim can come take it. It's no longer yours. It doesn't identify with this fellow. And the Ran says a chiddush. He says, Mehosham inan. We learn from here that if a fellow takes his bananas and makes it usher on himself, others can go and take it. It's hefker. You have no use from it. You have no ownership. You've given up all rights to these bananas. Chiddush. Okay, so bottom line is we seem to have a steer in the Mishnah. First teretz was, it's a machlekes. Whether Truma and Maser is owned by the farmer due to the Tevas Hana benefit. That's one sheet. The other sheet disagrees. And Rava says no. All agree perhaps Tevas Hana is Momin. So when I pinpoint, I identify certain Kohanim, you can't take my Truma, they have to listen. But if I make a general sweeping prohibition against all Kohanim taking my Truma, what I've done basically is disabled the Truma. In which case, I turned it into hefker. I let go of it. I've relinquished any rights to the Truma. So that itself makes it mutter to the Kohanim. Continues the Mishnah, Kohanim she'eini oisa al pi abba. Here we have a wife getting up and saying, a nether against me doing anything for your father. I'm not going to cook for him, not going to benefit him. Al pi Abba is my father, Al pi Avicha your father, Al pi Achi I'm not going to provide for my brother. Al pi Achicha or for your brother. Einoi yachal hafer. These aren't considered, inoi nefesh. It's not depriving her. It's not getting in the way of their marriage. Husband cannot apply any afara to this type of nether. So it falls outside of those two categories of inoi nefesh or beinoi lebina, right? What about she'enei oisa al picha? Making a nether on anything that I produce is usher to you, my husband. Einoi tzarach lahafer. Tanakama says, forget about it. Don't even bother applying afara. Why? So Ran brings because she's meshubah to him. She's committed to cook and to bake and all that. As we learned in Ksubis, a whole list of chores that an Isha does. She brings in some income, as prescribed in the Mishnah there. So that overrides her nether. It's not hers to make usher on him. Okay, that's Tanakama. Don't bother with hafar, it's unnecessary. Rabbi Kiva Omer Yafer. Keep in mind that the basic amount that she has to do, that she cannot make usher, but perhaps there's extra. Yafer, he has to do hafar Hashem tadif olav yosef min aroi loy. Remember, there's a whole list of specifications and requirements. the Ran brings chamesh mishkal chamesh slime begol, a certain amount of income that she has to bring into the family. But hadafa, more than that, is extra credit. In which case she's not meshuba to that, and that would technically be in her control, in her hands, to make usher on him, and therefore he has to do afara to address any extra that she may bring in. Yafer shema ta'adif olav, she might bring extra more than is coming to him. So according to Rakiva, ha'adafa, the extra, is really hers. Rabbi Yechim no, he says ha'adafa is not really hers, and we learned this in Ksubais. We're speaking about a ha'adafa al chak, which requires extra effort, extra exertion. That extra work or income is really hers, according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yechim says no, even that belongs to him, and therefore he says you can't just ignore it. Rabbi Yechim yafer. The reason why he has to do afara is not because she might do hadafa. Hadafa, as we just said, belongs to him as well. But the reason why he should do afara, shema yigarashena, because think long term. There might be gerushin. He might divorce her, but tehei asura olav, in which case she becomes asura at that point. You see, if he even wants to take her back and remarry her, he can't. True, as long as they're married and she's bound to him and she's meshubah to him for this, to bring in this income, she cannot stamp it with a neder. So don't worry about it. Even the hadafa is really his. Whatever she earns is his. But once he divorces, that's it. The neder snaps back into place, right? Because she's no longer bound to him. He's not her husband. So once the neder snaps back, the neder becomes, the maaseh yadayim become asr. Now he can't take her back because anything she'll produce is asr to him. So that's the reason for hafara. So we have three shittas regarding an isha who makes a neder koinem mashani ois al picha against her husband. Tanakama says leave it alone. You don't have to do anything. Whatever she earns is his anyways. She can't make it asr. Rabbi Kiva says the extra is an issue. Rabbi Yechim says the extra is not an issue, but after divorce might be an issue. Amar Shmuel, halacha ki Rabbi Yechim ben Nuri. The third shita. We are worried about after divorce. L'meima the kasavar Shmuel, the Shmuel really hold Adam magdish davar shloi b'la'olam. Keep in mind, this is not yet a situation that we're encountering. It's far off in the distance. It's davar shloi b'la'olam. She's currently married. The fact that Shmuel is concerned with post-marriage, something which is not yet here, as davar shaloi b'la'olam, would indicate that you can actually, initiate an isser or hegdish or kainam on something down the line in the future. Is that true? V'ramini, we have a kasha. We're going to have Shmuel himself, who seems to hold otherwise. You can affect isser, you can affect hegdish on something which is currently here, but not on something which is as yet, unborn. This is a case in the reverse. A husband applies hegdish on his wife's income. Okay? No problem. She can produce and consume her income. And the Ram brings the Gemara Ksubas. According to one pshat, was speaking that he's not supporting her, so she has a right to access her income. Okay. So sugi Ksubas, we're not going to get into it now, but bottom line is, Tanakama is not concerned about the basic income that she can just consume. It's hers. He has no right to make it us. So what about the extras? As we said before, there's an excess of her requirement. She's meant to produce a certain amount. What about the extra? Remember hegdish. It becomes hegdish. The Gemara Ksubas explains why. He has a right to make that also. Rabbi Yechon no. He says whatever she produces, whatever she earns, all her income is totally chulin, out of her husband's reach. Why? Says the Ran, the svira lei de'ein adam magdish davar shaloi b'la'olam. According to Rabbi Yechon Sander, person cannot apply hegdish to something which doesn't yet exist. Her income is not yet here. V'amar Shmuel, and Shmuel himself paskin like that. Halach Rabbi Sander. And how does Shmuel tell us? In our sugya, be concerned about after gerushin. Oh, that might become us. It's not yet here. Alma einadam magdish davar shel b'ayt. In fact, that Shmuel Pasal and Rabbi Yochanan Sander indicates that you can't be magdish something which is not yet here. So why is it that Shmuel and our sugi paskins like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri do the hafara because of after Gerushin? Well, after Gerushin is a world away. It's like Balaylam. Says the Gemara, perhaps we're misunderstanding Shmuel. Shmuel never concerned himself with something out in the future. Rather, he meant like this. You see, if we take a look back at the Mishnah, we have three shitas. Tanakama, who says, when a Isha makes a kind of a neder, whatever I produce is usher to you, my husband, don't worry about it. It's all his. It's not in her hands to do that isser. Rabbi Kiva says the extra is a concern. That's really hers. She's not obligated for that extra. It's hers. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, I'm not concerned about the extra. So in that sense, he agrees to the Tanakama. Apparently, extra is also considered husbands, so she can't really affect that. She can't make that also. But what I am concerned is about, after divorce, in which case she's no longer under his care, and then the neder will snap back, right? So now when Shmuel says, I choose Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, what do you mean to say? Perhaps he was only addressing one aspect of what Rabbi Yochanan was saying. I'm not concerned about, after divorce. That's davar shel b'ayt olam, and Shmuel himself is never concerned with davar shel b'ayt olam, as we just proved from the other Gemara and Ksubas. Rather, he was just trying to disagree with Rabbi Kiva, who said that the excess income, the extra, the hadafa, is rightfully hers to make usher on him. On that, I disagree. So in that aspect, I'm agreeing with the other shittas, whether it's the Tanakama or Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, who don't seem to be concerned about hadafa. That's all he meant to say. V'chitema kika'amar Allah Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. All Shmuel meant to say when he paskin like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri was al hadafa. Hudika. He meant to say that whatever she earns, even the extra, even above the required income al pi chazal, even the extra is still really considered his, and therefore no hafara is required on that. It's his. That's all he meant to say. Well, if that's the case, then he should say it. Should say what he means. That's all you should say. Rather than issuing this blanket, psak, I'm supporting Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, which sounds like it's referring to both aspects of Rabbi Yochanan. Number one, that don't be concerned about hadafa currently while they're married because it's his. And number two, do be concerned about the future income after divorce. Rather than saying it like that, which is sort of misleading, if he didn't mean that, he should just say halach Rabbi Yochanan beha'adaf. I pass like Rabbi Yochanan regarding that specific element of hadafa. That the hadafa also belongs to the husband. That's how he should say it. Otherwise, it's misleading. Or otherwise, he could have said halach Tanakama. Forget Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. That's confusing. I pass like the Tanakama, who's not concerned about hadafa. Inami, or he can say, Allah Rabbi Kiva. Sorry, the Ran says Ein Allah Rabbi Kiva. Or you can say, what? I don't follow Rabbi Kiva who's concerned about hadafa. I don't agree with that. There are so many different ways of saying it. Why did Shmuel choose to say it the way he did, which sounds like he's supporting Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri all the way, even with respect to davar shel b'ayt olam after divorce? That's a kash. Ella Amar Rabbi Yosef. Truthfully speaking, Shmuel holds you cannot be magdish something which doesn't yet exist. But shani kainamis, hegdish is one thing. Kainamis, iser neder is totally different. It's a personal commitment. And that has a more liberal and broader application. Look, we find throughout Masechtas Nedarim, Kainamas don't necessarily need to follow on the same track as Hegdish. They don't have the same requirements. You see, Hegdish entails taking an item and making it Hegdish. It has to be here. It has to be real. It has to be owned. It has to be current. Kainam, Nedarim, it's a verbal obligation, a verbal commitment. It can apply to even something which isn't necessarily, fully tangible in your hands right now. Like this. You see, I can take my peiros and make it asur on you. Something which doesn't work by Hegdish. Right? By Hegdish I can't, I can't take... by Kaidam, I'm taking Peres Chaver Allah, your fruit on me. Right? Can I do that? Sure. Reuven can make Shimon's bananas asur on Reuven. Right? Your fruit are asur to me. Something which I cannot do by Hegdish. I can't just walk over to your bananas and make it Hegdish. It's not mine. So, clearly, Nedarim work differently. Nedarim are broader. And therefore, likewise, I can apply a kainam to even something which doesn't yet exist. As long as I'm making it asur on myself. Right? I could take something which doesn't yet exist and say it's asur on me. The future income, whatever, will be asur on me. Right? It doesn't have to be totally here and totally mine. The Ran says, davar shalei b'olam is like something which doesn't yet belong to me. It's something which is like yours, comparable to something which is yours. Just like I can take something which is yours, something which is not in my hands, and make it asur on me. Likewise, I can take something which will come in the future and make it asur on me. A similar idea. Bottom line is, I'm committing to keeping away from that thing. And that explains why the Isha could do the same. Even though the income doesn't yet exist, she can make it asur on her husband. Amalei Abayi, what do you mean? How can you compare the two things? You see, you're comparing situations where, there's one chisar and one deficiency. That can work. So the two examples you cited were like this. Either the item doesn't belong to me, it's your banana, but ultimately I'm making it asur on me. So it's really only once removed. The item is not mine, but the isser is me. And you compare it to davar shalei b'olam, where there too there's only one deficiency. The item doesn't yet exist, but it's asur on me. Okay, but now we're taking it a step further. We're stretching it. And want to include even cases where we have two deficiencies. What is the Isha doing? She's taking something which doesn't yet exist, that's number one chisaron, and making it asur on somebody else, on her husband. That's a double chisaron. We have no source for that. I can understand how, a person could say, I can say, your fruit is asur to me. I can do that. Because it's only one step down, only one chisaron. Shari Adam oiser peiros v'chaver, just like I can take my fruit and make it asur on you. It's one up and one down. It's on you, which is one down. It's removed. I have no control over you, but it's just one chisaron because it's really my fruit. So it's one up, one down. So one chisaron works, one deficiency works. But a case which has two deficiencies, elo yeser davar shalei bolo olam al chaver, but how could a person take something which A, doesn't yet exist, that's one deficiency, and number two, making it asur on somebody else, a double deficiency? You can't do that. Just like sharei ein adam oiser peres chaver al chaver. Just like you can't walk over to somebody else and say, your bananas are asur to you. I have no right to do that. It's a doubly removed equation. A double chesar, a double deficiency. That's exactly what the Isha is trying to do here. You have no substantiation for that. So back to the kasha, how can the Isha do it? How can she affect Isra on post-divorce income? A situation which doesn't yet exist. Ela marafuna by Rav Yeshua. The answer is like this: by Meres, Yikachu Yodai Le'asem. That when the Mishnah speaks about an Isha making her income also to her husband, even pertaining to a future status, post-divorce status, it's because she said, my hands, which are here now, which are tangible, should become kaddish to their maker, to Hashem. The Yodayim, because the hands are here. The source of the income, the hands that produce the income are here. It's something tangible. It's not davar shalabad olam. And therefore it works. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? Kacha? So even by saying that, how does that work? How does that make it asur? V'mashabdam yodel labal. You see, even if you can be magdash something which doesn't yet exist, right now, these hands that she's pointing to are her husband's. They're meshubah to the husband. They're meshubah to the Masi Yodayim. She's committed. She's obligated to use these hands to benefit her husband, to bring in income. So how would it work? Even if she says these hands should be asur, whatever they produce should be asur b'kainam, the hands currently are certainly committed to her husband. And so the Gemara, the Amra, because she said the chimagarsha, I want his hands to be asur when I divorce. Well, how does that help us? Hashtam miyas lemegasha. Right now she's not yet divorced. And why would you say that? How do you know that it would work? In her current situation, these hands are meshubot. Right? And we're working with the concept that, you can't really be magdish davar shleibay leilam. That's Shmuel's shita. Right? So your answer was, well, the hands are here. Well, the hands now belong to the husband. Well, the hands are after divorce. That's a non-existing situation. It's davar shleibay leilam. How does that work? Okay, to be continued. So bottom line is like this. We had a stira in that Mishnah regarding Truma and Maser. Who owns the Truma? Who owns the Maser? The Taivas Hana interest that he has. Is that considered moment to indicate ownership by the farmer or not? We seem to have a stira. In case one, he made Asr. All Kayhanim and Levim on his Truma and Maser. Mishnah says they can go out and take. It's not really his. Then we say, well, these specific Kohanim and Levim are Asr, they cannot take. Which indicates that he does own the material. First we figure it's Machlekes Tanaim. Then Rabbi says, look, maybe Teva Sana is Mamin. But when he makes it Asr on everybody, that's pulling the string a bit too hard. A bit too far. Because in that case, he disabled the Truma. Nobody can take it. He made it Hefka. He relinquished any interest, any ownership, in which case that in itself allows them to come take it. We have case one in the Mishnah, which he made all types of isurim against relatives. No hafara applies there. My husband, you can't take from me. We have three shittas. Tanakama says, don't worry about it. It's all his anyways. His shibud overrides her neder. Rakiva says, ha'adafa is a concern, the extras, which doesn't really belong to him. Therefore, you should do hafara. Rabbi Yechim Nuri says, I'm not concerned about the actual income right now, or even the ha'adafa, but I am concerned about future, after gerushin. Therefore, do hafara now to address that possible scenario. Shmuel seemed to paskin like that, which would indicate you can affect something down the line on the davar shleibay leilam, post-divorce, and we seem to have Shmuel telling us otherwise. In Ksubais, you can't be magdish davar shleibay leilam. So the Gemara figure out kainamas work differently. Well, then the Gemara said, even that's a bit too much. Apparently she said the hands will be asr. Well, again, the hands right now are sort of meshubah to him. Well, no, the hands after gerushin. Well, that doesn't yet exist. How does that work? We left it off right there. We'll continue B'ezras Hashem tomorrow. All the best. You and Hatzlach, Rabbi.